Welcome back. Today we're going to tackle one of the biggest and most important ideas in finance, the share. What does it actually mean when you own one? Well, let's break it down, nice and simple.
So, if you remember from our last explainer, we talked about how the stock market isn't some kind of exclusive, members-only club. Nope. It's a place where regular people, like you and me, can actually get involved.
But that leaves us with a really big question, right? When you participate, what is it that you actually own? The answer to that is the key to understanding, well, pretty much everything else. And it's probably a lot simpler than you think.
To really get it, we have to start at square one. A company, it's just a business. That's it. It might make things, it might provide services, and just like any business, whether it's a huge corporation or a corner store, it needs money to run, to pay its people, buy supplies, and just keep the lights on. But what happens when a company gets ambitious? It wants to get bigger, right? Maybe it wants to build a new factory or expand into a whole new city. A lot of the time, the money it makes day to day, its profit, well, it's just not going to be enough to fund those huge growth plans. So, they have this really brilliant idea. To raise all that extra cash, they can take the entire company, the whole thing, and chop it up into millions of tiny, equal little pieces. Seriously, just picture a giant pizza being sliced into an incredible number of identical slices.
So this journey to ownership is actually a really simple one. You start with one whole company. Then that company gets divided into all those little equal pieces. Each one of those individual pieces is called a share. And here it is. This is the most important part. Owning just one of those shares means you own a small, real piece of the actual company.
And look, that's not just a nice idea or a metaphor. It's the real deal. When you invest in a company's stock, you own a share, a slice, a piece of the business that issued it. It's not just a number flashing on a screen. It's a genuine claim to ownership. Now, this is a point where things can get a little fuzzy for people. You might be thinking, okay, if I own a piece of the company, does that mean I'm an employee? Do I have to, show up for meetings? It's a totally fair question. Let's clear that up right now.
There's a really big difference here. An employee works for the company, right? They get a salary in exchange for their work. But an owner, who we also call a shareholder, they own a part of the company. They're not getting a paycheck, but they benefit when the company does well and grows. It's a completely different relationship.
So, when you boil it all down, this whole idea of creating shares is basically a company's way of inviting the public, normal people like you and me, to become part owners with them. They're saying, hey, help us grow our business, and in return, you can own a piece of our future success.
And I really want this to sink in for a second. You don't need a ton of money. You don't have to be some kind of financial genius. Owning even one single share of a company makes you, officially, a part owner of that business.
Think about it like this. A massive company is like a giant building made of millions and millions of bricks. You don't have to buy the whole building to be an owner. Just owning one single brick is a start. That one brick makes you part of it all. How cool is that?
We're really trying to break these big ideas down one piece at a time. If you're finding this step-by-step approach helpful, maybe consider subscribing so you don't miss out on the next part of the journey with us.
So now we know what a share is. The next logical question is, how does this whole system actually stay organized? How does it all work? Well, in our next explainer, we're going to dive into how stock markets are structured to handle all this, and we'll take a special look at how it all comes together right here in India. Hope to see you then.